Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stoney Acres. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about harvesting potatoes and when you should be harvesting your potatoes. And I'm going to give you 3 different ways to tell if your potatoes are ready. Before we get started, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click that notification bell so you get notice every time I release new videos. And go follow us over on Instagram as well. We've got a growing following over there and I'd love to have you join us. Make sure you stick around too, because I am going to talk a little bit about the Gardening Academy at the end of this video. Okay, so I filmed a video about 4 or 5 years ago on when to harvest potatoes. Watched it the other day and it was feeling a little dated. Thought I would update it a little bit and give you guys a new video here on when to harvest potatoes. So there's really 3 ways that you can tell that, there's potatoes around to harvest. And so let me kind of run through each of those and talk a little bit about them. The last one being the one that's the sure method, okay? So first we're going to talk about time to maturity. So when you plant some potatoes, you ought to know that that variety takes 100 days to mature, or 120 days, or whatever. Most potatoes are usually maturing between 90 to 120 days. So if you're before that date, don't worry about it. They really do take that long, about at least 3 to 4 months to mature. And so if you haven't hit that date yet, don't worry about harvesting. But once you hit around that 90-day mark, it's time to really start paying attention to your potatoes and checking on them to see if they are ready to harvest. So, 90 days to 120 days, depending on the variety, is when we are going to start looking at harvesting those potatoes. Okay, next on our list is flowers on your potato plants. Now, I'm going to try and make this as clear as mud, okay? When you see flowers on your potato plants, that's an indication that you are also starting to get tuber development underneath. But the two are not connected, okay? So flowering is independent of tuber growth. They just happen at the same time, okay? So there are many varieties of potatoes that don't flower, and even some of the varieties that consistently flower for me, some years don't because of the weather conditions. Like this year, we had very few flowers on our potatoes because we had 100-degree temperatures early in June, and so I just didn't see many flowers, okay? But flowering, when they're there, is an indication that you are starting to get potatoes growing under the ground. So if you are interested in getting new potatoes, just the young, small potatoes, then when your potato plants start to flower is when you're going to start looking for those potatoes. And you don't need to harvest the whole plant. You can, of course, if you want, but you can just kind of dig around in the ground and find potatoes around the plant and pull those up and use them and leave the rest of the plant in the ground to continue to mature. And that happens when we start to see flowers. But again, the flowers are not what's causing the potatoes to grow. So if your potatoes don't flower, don't panic. There's still growing potatoes under the ground. You just have a variety that didn't flower. The last way that we tell that potatoes are ready for harvest is when the plants start to die back. Now, I get messages on all the different social media apps saying, my potatoes were just looking beautiful and all of a sudden they've just died. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. That's just part of the natural growth process of potatoes. So as they reach that maturity date, so depending on the variety, 90 to 120 days, once we start to reach that, then the tops will start to die off. So these vines that we see on these potato plants will start to die back, and you will, you'll see those plants dying. And that's the sign that the plant is done. They're not going to put any more growth into the potatoes that are under the ground, and so it's time to harvest. Now, I like to wait until probably about 70% of the plant has died back. And I'll do a few cutaway pictures here to kind of show you. I like to still see a little bit of green on the plants, but at the same time, I want the vines to fall over and to start to wither. But still a bit of green left on those plants is when I will start my harvesting. So let's take the patch of potatoes that's behind me here as an example. So these are the first potatoes that I planted in my garden this year. They were planted on April 30th. Today is July 20th. So these are 81 days in the ground. And you can see that we're starting to see the vines dying back. They're not as lush as they used to be, and we're starting to see them lose their color. They're starting to fall over. There's 2 or 3 of the plants that are actually really starting to shrivel up. That means we're quickly approaching the time for us to be actually harvesting these potatoes. And once you start to see those signs, you really can harvest just about any time. In fact, we've already started harvesting from this patch. I dug up a bunch just the other day, and we've been eating them for the last couple of days, and we're getting a good harvest of medium to even some large potatoes at just 81 days. Now, we'll probably let this patch before we completely finish. It'll probably go another 20 days. These are red Pontiacs, which mature in 90 to 100 days. So, you know, somewhere around 20 days, we will be kind of finished up and ready to finalize harvesting these. So there you go. Time to maturity, flowering if you want little potatoes, and the vines dying back is when you are going to do your main harvesting. Now, is what I'm going to do really quick, is I'm going to break away here and we're going to do some harvesting. Okay guys, so let's harvest some potatoes. First thing I would encourage you to do is use a digging fork. I love digging forks for harvesting potatoes and other root crops because it gives you a chance to skewer fewer potatoes by using it. Now keep in mind this patch is only about 80 days in the ground, and so don't expect spectacular results here. We'll leave most of them in for another 20 days or so, but I did want to get this video out before harvesting season so you guys had a chance to learn how to do this. So you want to make sure that you get back about 12 inches or so from your plant and kind of just start loosening the soil up with your digging fork. If you start back far enough, then you're not going to be skewering those potatoes, okay? Then I just kind of get underneath and give it a good pry. And then we pull this guy up. And there you go. So like I say, nothing spectacular because we do have about another 20 days to go. But these will make a nice, yummy meal for us. And there we go. So we've got a decent harvest of smaller potatoes here that are, for the most part, going to be kind of centered around the plant. Just kind of carefully go through and dig up those tops. And there we go with some nice red potatoes. And remember, these are about 80 days. And so that's why we're not seeing huge potatoes yet. We've still got a few weeks that these can continue to grow. But this is what I dug out of 3 plants, and you can see we're starting to get some decent sized ones, but also a lot of smaller ones that are going to be great as well. Okay, so I think that is it, my friends. After we do this, if you're going to store them, you'll take them inside and let them cure. And right up here, there's a link that you can go watch a video on curing potatoes, learn a little bit more about that. Or you can just take them in and eat them. You don't have to cure them. You can just eat them if you're not going to store them, and that's what we're going to do with these. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section. And then if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and go over and follow us on Instagram as well. And while I've got you, make sure that you go and check out the link down in the description below for the Gardening Academy. We've got a great 14-day free trial offer on the Gardening Academy right now. And the Gardening Academy is our monthly subscription service where we teach you how to become a better gardener. And there's a lot of fun stuff happening over there, and I would love to have you come join us. Free trial down in the description below. Okay, that's all I have for you for this week, guys. Thanks a lot. Happy gardening.